All right, we are back here on the podcast, getting ready for our fantasy football draft. So you're getting close to the NFL season. So of course, it's time to get ready for the all-important fantasy draft. Joining me today, great friend of the podcast. He's a fantasy football contributor over at DraftShark. Matt Schauf is back with us. Matt, how are you?
Doing great. Like you said, all important fantasy football draft season. I don't think there's a better way to describe it. This is my time of year.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back in the postseason mix this year. I was like a first round exit this last year, so I'm trying to get deeper in the postseason in my league. So I might.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, everybody wants that goal here. So I'm going to ask you, what are the big fantasy headlines we need to know about here as we head into the season?
I would say this time of year, it's really primarily about injuries. The big ones I'm watching are Devon Achane in Miami. Malik Neighbors just came back to practice for the Giants today, so I'm very happy to see that. Matthew Stafford returning this week for the Rams, which not only important for him, but for the receivers in that offense. AJ Brown's got an injury that we got to watch. Those are the big ones. And then Washington's making it interesting by holding out Brian Robinson. We've got some weird reports about him. Terry McLaurin. It's still a contract issue there, so I guess we'll see if maybe he gets traded. You got to bet against something like that at this point, but still a possibility. So I think those are the things to primarily watch as we're getting ready for those late August drafts.
Yeah, I would agree with that here. And one of the first things here is like if you're lucky enough to get that top pick, I don't think it's as clear cut this year as it's been in the past few years, where last year everybody's like, oh, Christian McCaffrey. Year before that, was like, oh, Justin Jefferson. This year, I feel like there's like a little tier of guys you could take number one. So if you have 1-1, where are you going?
I would have to go with Jamar Chase, and it's boring, and I'm always the one who wants to try to find a different answer at one. And I'm not disagreeing that you can take other guys at number one, but Jamar Chase is going to have to get hurt to really let you down from that point. He's the clear number one target for probably the pass heaviest team in the league. We'll see if that holds this year, but they've been the pass friendliest offense over the past few years in Cincinnati. So Jamar Chase is a pretty safe pick up top. We saw Christian McCaffrey let everybody down last year. That was injury. Justin Jefferson the year before, also injury. So as long as you're taking somebody that doesn't really have a strong case beyond injury to get knocked out of that top spot, I think you're making an okay pick.
Yeah, I did feel like that, like Jamar Chase, I agree with you, feels like the safest option on the board here. Like, are there other alternatives you consider if you don't want to go that way?
I think you can say CeeDee Lamb over Jamar Chase, but it's kind of the same case as Chase, but for an offense that's not as good. Bijan Robinson is in the mix as well. I would be fine with taking Robinson first, but I find that I like my team better if I start with that stud level wide receiver and then fill in what running back after that. But I do think that this could be a year where we're looking back at the end of December and January and people are like, man, I wish I had more Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, there's thing to see with that for sure. In terms of the quarterbacks here on the board, obviously you have our big quarterbacks at the top of of your boards in terms of that positions: Lamar, Josh Allen, Burrow from the passing perspective. You can look at Jalen Hurts with the rushing perspective here. Like, when is your spot where you say, okay, I want to take one of these top quarterbacks, give myself the position edge? When is too early, you feel like, to go grab the Lamar or the Josh Allen?
I I'm not leaning quarterback at like the 2-3 turn or early in round three. I'll start looking if I'm picking late in round three when we're getting into Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts territory, especially if either or both of them get into round four. That's when I really get interested because the options at running back and wide receiver get a little bit more iffy. Plus, I've already gotten three guys across those two positions, most likely through the first three rounds. So I've already laid a base where now I can take that high upside quarterback. Jaden Daniels, I think, has the upside to finish at the top of the position this year. He was awesome as a rookie. No reason to believe that he shouldn't be awesome again and going forward. And Jalen Hurts seems like he's coming off a down year. But if you take away the game that he left early at the end of the year, and when I say early, he left in the first quarter of that game against Washington, he was still a top five scorer, even on the run heaviest team in the league. Um, actually gained goal line carries with Saquon Barkley on the team versus the year before. So some of the concern was if Barkley's there, they're not going to run Jalen Hurts near the goal line as much. That actually didn't prove to be true. And there were more to go around because the offense was just better overall. So I still think Jalen Hurts is safe and a high upside guy every week delivered for us very commonly. So that's where I'm starting to look at quarterback. Not that I feel like I need to get a top four guy, but that's my starting point for considering.
As let's go to the running back front because last few years you've heard all about running back at committee. Should I do zero RB? Should I do hero RB? Last year felt like a rare year where the running backs really delivered their draft value compared to some of the top receivers had issues here. Do you think this is a mirage last year? Or you think this is maybe the NFL is starting to trend back toward okay, let's use the running backs more? Do you think we're that last year was an exception to the rule?
Yeah, so I don't think it was either a mirage or a drastic change. I think it's important to look at the specific context. And what we got heading into last season was the league telling us these running backs matter a lot. It was Baltimore investing in Derrick Henry. It was Philadelphia investing in Saquon Barkley, Green Bay investing in Josh Jacobs, Minnesota investing in Aaron Jones. And we as drafters still had some skepticism about those guys here and there, how much they were really worth. What if Saquon Barkley doesn't get as many scoring chances because he's playing with Jalen Hurts instead of just saying, well, what if Saquon Barkley is just awesome and he's now in the best situation of his career? So I think that drafters to some degree ignored the upside and context on some of those running backs last year. And then the other component of that is there were some very significant wide receiver injuries toward the top of the ADP board that made wide receivers look worse versus running backs. I'm talking about 7 of the 12 wide receivers that went inside the first 2 rounds in ADP missed multiple games with injuries last year. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill both went in the first half of round one. Both dealt with significant injuries. AJ Brown at number 10 overall, Puka Nacua. Marvin Harrison Jr. was not an injury thing, but I thought he was getting drafted too early last year when he was going inside of round two. That proved to be true. So he kind of factors into that as well. Devontae Adams missed some time with the Raiders before the trade. Chris Olave was inside the first 2 rounds. He missed some time. So that I think made it look even worse for wide receivers versus running backs. So I think the way to react to all of that this year is, you know, pay attention to the specific running back situations. I think everybody is correcting themselves on Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and other guys in that category, but don't downplay the upside of those wide receivers. If Puka Nacua stays healthy, if CeeDee Lamb stays healthy, if any of those first round wideouts stays healthy, they remain just as good. And in some cases, you can get them a little bit later. AJ Brown, in particular, stands out to me because he's sliding into the middle of round two just because he missed a little bit of time last year. He was the same productive guy when he was on the field.
Yeah, I want to dive into a couple of civic running backs before we move on to the receiver position here. Like number one, Saquon Barkley last year, historic year, nearly sets the rushing record. He has the very, very heavy workload. He's approaching 30. So, like, if I'm in the first round and Saquon's on the board, should I be concerned I'm going to get some fall off here? Not just like obviously he's not going to do 2,000 yards again, but like, am I worried like, okay, he's going to be really less productive because the carries take a toll on him?
I think that you should be concerned in that he had this heavy workload that doesn't normally happen. And the way to look at that is you don't just, so we tend to say this guy got a lot of work last year. Now he's going to be worn down. I think that's not quite the right way to look at it. And I think that kind of sets the debate wrong on players like that. The way that I look at it is you have to be pretty lucky to handle the ball that much as a running back in the NFL and not get hurt. So likely if you're still in for that level of workload year after year, one of these years you're going to get hurt. Sometimes, maybe his body is worn down because they played deep into February as well. I certainly have never played professional football. I think that they can probably figure out how to manage and train a guy in the offseason to bounce him back from that. But the luck factor, I think, is easy to overlook. And if you're carrying the ball 320, 330 times in an NFL season, you're going to take some bad hits that, hurt you from week to week. And at some point, something's going to knock you down. Plus, he was hyper efficient last year. That's just the kind of thing that doesn't happen year to year. So that might end up looking like, oh, he wore down. But it's really just unlikely that you're that hyper efficient every year. So I think because Barkley has those factors working, into his outlook, as well as not drawing as much receiving work as Bijan Robinson at the top of round one. That's what makes me like Robinson more than Barkley because he has that higher floor thanks to the receiving and didn't do his scoring on hyper efficiency last year. So I think that there's less room, fewer things that can knock him off from where we're drafting both of those guys.
Yeah, okay. Running back number two I want to touch on is obviously 1-1 last year. A lot of people got burned by Christian McCaffrey. He gets hurt in camp. He only ends up playing a handful of games. All reports are he's been healthy this year, but his history is concerning. Like, where in the first round are you saying, okay, like I'm going to take the plunge and I feel okay, I feel good that Christian McCaffrey is my RB1?
I'm fine anywhere from about 1.6, 1.7 on. It was really, we didn't. So I think we didn't fully appreciate the significance of his calf injury last year. And it was a tendonitis kind of thing. So it was tough to gauge. And San Francisco was a little squirrely about it heading into the season and then just kept lingering and lingering. And at some point, we should have not been drafting him in round one, but people were scared to not do that because of how good he was the year before. So I think the important thing to remember is how good he was the year before. It'd be different if he was coming off a hamstring injury or if he tore an ACL, where we were like, I don't know how that particular thing is this year. The issue that kept him out last year doesn't seem to be an issue at all this year. So I would rather err on the side of believing in him because of the dominant force that he was in fantasy the year before than worrying about this calf issue that doesn't seem like it's an issue at all this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take him in there. Maybe I'll insure him a bit more at running back than I might have previously, but I mean, otherwise, I want to bet on the talent rather than worry about that specific issue.
Yeah, for sure. The last running back we're going to touch on here, Ashton Janty, the first round pick from the Raiders. And like it's every so often we get one of these backs that comes in the league, you're very excited to take them high. I know last year, Bijan Robinson was that guy. And a couple years ago, he's really paid off here. Where do you feel comfortable with Janty with the Raiders? I know there's no real threat to him, like in terms of being somebody taking carries from him. Do you feel like this is one of these years where like, okay, rookie running back, he's just gonna come in and dominate?
Yeah, I think he's fine anywhere late in round one. You can pass on him if you want because he is an unknown. None of us has seen it, but there's no reason to believe he's not going to get heavy work from the Raiders right away. There is no challenge for him. And people might point to Bijan Robinson as a warning because his rookie year, we were expecting big stuff. And then they gave the ball to Tyler Algier a bunch. Well, the Raiders don't have a Tyler Algier. They have Raheem Mostert and some other dudes that probably most people listening can't name. So I'm not worried about Ashton Genty missing those touches because they're going to a teammate. And Chip Kelly, who is the offensive coordinator for the Raiders this year, has been big on play volume. He runs a fast-paced offense, which means more plays, and that means more opportunities for Ashton Genty. So even if he's not super efficient in an offense that, stands the risk of not being super efficient overall, I think he's going to get the ball more than enough to make up for that. And I think he's at the very least going to be a solid contributor for us from that area, from the end of round one through the beginning of round two.
Yeah, for sure. Go to receivers here. You mentioned that Jamar Chase is your 1-1, is your top receiver on the board. Like, how do you rank the rest of that top tier? Like, how do you feel the rest of those big guys fall?
I would have CeeDee Lamb up there with them. Justin Jefferson close by. He's got that hamstring issue that's worrying me a bit. And I think that helps me separate Jamar Chase from the rest of the position as well because of that injury, being a question mark with Jefferson this close to the season. I would have had Puka Nacua up in that range with them as well. The Matthew Stafford back trouble makes me just a slight bit more hesitant. I still like Puka inside of round one, but that knocks him from that top tier down to the next one for me. Just that uncertainty.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Excuse me for a second.
All good. Tight end wise, obviously, we know that there's the big three. You got Brock Bowers, had the historic rookie year for the Raiders last year, Trey McBride in Arizona, Kittle in San Francisco, who's going to get more work now that Debo's gone. But outside of those three, like, obviously, you're waiting a while for tight end at that point. Like, who do you like outside the top three? Where are you looking for that to address that position?
I'm willing to take Travis Kelce if he slips past tight end five, but if he doesn't, if he goes tight end five, tight end six, I'm probably waiting past that. David Njoku's really the first guy that I give a serious look to. I think he's going a little bit later than he should. We've got him at tight end seven on DraftSharks in our tight ends rankings. He's going more like tight end 10 in ADP, so I think he's undervalued. Dalton Kincaid's another guy that's several spots undervalued because of his injuries that he dealt with each of the past 2 years, but what he did get each of those past 2 years is pretty good target volume. Was a tight end 10, was a top 10 tight end in target share, both the second half of his rookie year and last year when he was on the field. So I'm willing to bank on that and trust that as long as he stays healthy and is getting targets in Buffalo, he's going to be at least a floor play for us at tight end. He's got the talent that made him a first round pick a couple years ago. He's got a high level quarterback, and he's got an offense that doesn't have a whole lot in the way of exciting pass catchers. So I think there's plenty of room for Dalton Kincaid to start out as a floor play for us and perhaps give us more than we're expecting.
Yeah, sounds good to me there. In terms of the first round here, like where do you feel like is that pivot point in round one where you say, okay, this is my top group. Now I'm past that point. Where do I have the toughest pick to make? Where do you feel like is the toughest slot to be in right now?
Honestly, I haven't found a slot that I really dislike because of those wide receivers that we were talking about a few minutes ago. Previously, Bijan Robinson made it kind of easy for me because he started out draft season going after Saquon Barkley, and I already liked Bijan Robinson better. So I was like, fine, if I'm at two, I'm taking Bijan Robinson. If I'm at three, I'm still probably getting Robinson because somebody else probably took Barkley ahead of him. Then those wide receivers that I like start factoring in. CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson, if he's healthy by draft time, Puka Nakua, Malik Neighbors getting back on the field's a big help. I really like Neighbors. I like Nico Collins. I like Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm finding really anywhere in round one, I'm pretty comfy. And really the latter third to quarter of round one is where I've been most comfortable because I tend to get a wide receiver who's sliding past where I think he should go, or even Christian McCaffrey slides to that range. That was happening more so early in draft season. He's moved up the ADP board now. But, if I get to if I'm picking 10, 11, 12, and there are five guys in that range that I'm okay with, then it makes it really easy to just kind of sit there and catch whichever one gets to you and then get another high level value right around the turn. Like I mentioned, I think AJ Brown's going later than he should. So he's commonly available there for me in round two, whether I started with the wide receiver or running back. So, I mean, my honest answer is I haven't found myself uncomfortable in round one, whereas last year that range, like 9 to 12, was a lot more uncomfortable because I don't think that the wide receivers were nearly as attractive.
Yeah, it makes some sense. Here, go quickly a couple other things here. Sleepers for some guys. Quarterback, who's your sleeper quarterback you think we are overlooking right now?
I think Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love are a couple of key sleepers. I would have said Dak Prescott much earlier in draft season, but he has moved up. I think Justin Fields is going a little bit later than he should. But true sleepers, I say Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love have the upside to finish among the top 12, maybe even top eight, and you can get them well into QB2 territory.
Yeah, I think those are definitely good shouts. I also like go more on Justin Fields. You brought up here. I'm a New York base, so like obviously he's here in New York. The Jets seem to be building this offense around Fields. They've been running a lot, which means he's gonna get some work on the ground. Don't know how much they're gonna throw with him, but like Fields specifically, like where you think like he's I feel like he's a sneaky value just because like if they do let him get like 800 rushing yards, that's a pretty good QB1 value if he's not throwing the ball as much.
Yeah, he's a top nine quarterback in our rankings, and he's sliding down in ADP. So he started out low, and then he climbed, and now he's fallen back because there's negative reports coming out about the Jets offense. And normally I would say, yeah, okay, maybe we should hesitate on a quarterback if the offense doesn't look good. But with Justin Fields, I don't care because if the Jets offense is bad, if the passing's not going well, he's still going to run and he's not going to get benched. They're not going to be like, all right, dude, it's week nine. It's time for us to yank Justin Fields and put Tyrod Taylor in there. He's the answer for them this year. So he's going to stay on the field. He showed us in the past that the upside goes into the top six, and he doesn't need to play well to score fantasy points. So I feel good about Justin Fields as my starting quarterback, and he's really kind of like a safety net for me. Where I told you before, I'd start looking at Jalen Hurts, but I don't feel like I need to get him because I can wait another 3 rounds or so and still get Justin Fields.
Yeah, it makes some sense here. Quarterbacks you're avoiding. Anybody you're not trying but to get shares of.
Yeah, Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield are the two guys that I'm really not going after at all. Baker Mayfield is just due for some regression after he put up a really high touchdown rate last year and put up really high rushing numbers for him. He more than doubled his points per game in rushing last year versus any other year of his career. So that's coming down. The passing touchdown rate is coming down, and yet he's still going inside the top eight in ADP. Could he finish up there again? For sure. He finished fourth last year, but he's not likely to. And I'm not worried about missing out on anything big. Bo Nix, similar. He was really up and down last year. I think we all collectively tend to look now at the second half of his season and say, yeah, look how he scored right here. He's going to score this way over the full season now because it's his second year. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe he's up and down again because the receivers aren't great, because he's still a young quarterback. And ultimately, it's the same kind of thing where even if Bo Nix finishes eighth among quarterbacks, that's fine versus where he's going right now. But I'm not losing anything by passing on him and taking Justin Fields or some of the other quarterbacks we talked about later.
All right, go running back sleeper. Who is a sleeper running back? I know last year Bucky Irvin was a big name, and he had a huge delivered huge for people who took him late.
I like Isaiah Pacheco, and it's a little bit touchy of what is actually a sleeper, but I think Isaiah Pacheco's going late enough. He's just outside or on the fringes of RB2 territory. I think his upside stretches into the top 15 at the position. So getting lots of Isaiah Pacheco. Jalen Warren's going in the middle of RB3 territory. I think he's got top 16 upside because we don't know if Caleb Johnson's going to get Najee Harris's touches from either of the past 2 years. So if we get Jalen Warren still as the receiving leader in that backfield, and if he gets to be the rushing leader for the season, we don't know how high that ceiling goes. And then much later, like true sleeper territory, I like stashing Jalen Wright. I know that he has not had a buzzy preseason, but he's still working with the first team there. He's going in RB5 territory. And Devon Achan's got a calf injury ahead of him. So we could get to week one and find Jalen Wright being the touch leader for Miami. And I guarantee you, if we get week one, Jalen Wright leading the Dolphins in touches, he's going to be a hot commodity on waivers for any league where he didn't get drafted. And anybody who did draft him is going to be feeling great.
All right, other way, running backs you're avoiding, who you are not getting a lot of shares of in your teams.
Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy in round one that I don't like because when David Montgomery was on the field last year, Jahmyr Gibbs was about running back 20 in expected points per game. And that expected points per game build off of the number of touches that a player is getting and where those touches are coming. He actually trailed David Montgomery in expected fantasy points per game, which means David Montgomery was getting better usage, that they were splitting the number of touches evenly. David Montgomery was getting stuff near the goal line. So Jahmyr Gibbs is a very good player. I think he's going to be the kind of player that outproduces his expected points throughout his career. But it's also a good idea for Detroit to continue to limit his touches a bit, not, limit it too much, but not overwork him because he's not a big guy and he's going to stay his most efficient when he's not carrying the ball and getting hit too much. So inside of round one and certainly in the first half of round one, I'm out on Jahmyr Gibbs. Bucky Irving in round two, I think has similar downside in that we're collectively as drafters looking at his end of season, like very final third of the year where he got workhorse level work. And now we're projecting that over a full season. He's another guy that's just shy of 200 pounds. I'm not sure Bucky Irving can hold up to that kind of workload over a full season. So I'm not willing to make that bet in the middle of round two.
Okay, receiver sleeper. Who you like as receivers? Somebody who's not going high enough for you.
Another one that's you can call him just undervalued instead of sleeper, but Jalen Waddle, I think, is a very nice pick in the middle of wide receiver three range. Not only has he already showed us he's better than that, he finished top 22 in each of his first three seasons before last year went rough for him. But there's also the Tyreek Hill factor where Hill was injured last year, seemed to lose a step, and now he's dealing with injury again. It's been a while since Tyreek Hill got a lot of on-field work with Tua Tagovailoa. It's possible that we get Jalen Waddle just passing Tyreek Hill as the top scoring wide receiver in Miami this year. And even if we don't get that, he already showed us that he can produce with Tyreek Hill on the field. So I think we're drafting Jalen Waddle at his floor and maybe below his floor for a healthy season right now. I think his upside goes well beyond that.
Yeah, on the other way, I'm assuming you would say Tyreek Hill is a guy you're not getting too many shares of based on what you just said.
I've become more wary of him lately because of the injury stuff. I was okay with him before, and I still won't say that people should avoid him, but I don't. It's not a bad idea to avoid him right now. I don't think it's going to come back and bite you too hard.
All right, last one, tight end spot here. Like, give me like a sleeper there, and give me a guy you're avoiding.
It's going to be really boring, but Zach Ertz is getting drafted later than he should. And it's because we all underrated him last year and apparently then ignored how he scored because he finished the season as tight end 11 in PPR. He was also tight end 11 or 9, I believe, in expected points per game. So he was scoring right at his usage. He was not the kind of guy that just got lucky on the numbers, lucky on the touchdowns. He got much more usage than anyone projected. He paid off with that usage. And then Washington paid him even more to come back this year when he hit the open market. They could have easily let him walk, say, all right, you're old, we're going to move on to Ben Sinnott, but they didn't. They were like, we need Zach Ertz. And they have other issues at wide receiver. Terry McLaurin has not really been on the field with them this year. So Zach Ertz should still get the ball, should still get the opportunities plenty. So he looks to me like a sleeper at his tight end 20 ADP right now.
Okay, and the other is there anybody you're avoiding on the tight end front? I feel like last year a lot of people got burned by Mark Andrews, a good example.
I'm skipping Brock Bowers, and it's not because of any disbelief in him, but to take him, you generally are going to have to draft him inside of round two. And that's just too early for a tight end in general, because when you draft Brock Bowers right there, we all expect him to be good, but when you're drafting him there ahead of high level wide receivers and running backs, now he needs to be an elite tight end scorer, needs to score well above most of the rest of the position for that pick to pay off for you. He can't just be number one. I mean, there will be plenty of leagues where if he does that, it's fine for you. But you're betting on him having a truly elite season where he's, 2 to 3 points per game better than, say, George Kittle or whoever's number three and the guys behind that. So I would just rather spend that pick on a different position and wait and take my tight end later. I think there aren't really too many bust candidates beyond that, but just a couple other guys I'm avoiding at cost. TJ Hawkinson, for a similar kind of reason. He's fine, but I don't think there's a whole lot of upside versus where you have to draft him. And then Colson Loveland, I'm just a little hesitant to bet on him when I can get either safer options or, Tyler Warren, who I think is in a spot with clearer opportunity on his side.
Yeah, I felt like the Bowers thing kind of feels like people who drafted Sam Laporta last year off his huge rookie year and got like nothing close to that value.
Right.
All right. Matt, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media, keep up with your fantasy coverage. How can they do that?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff on draftsharks.com. You check the DraftSharks YouTube channel. We post shows there twice weekly. That's going currently and throughout the season. And you can find me on what used to be Twitter at SchaufDS, SCHAUF.
All right, Matt, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. Good luck in your drafts this year.
Absolutely. You too, man.